Testing. All right, it works.
Just a second, Brother Luke. I did want Pastor Boyle to give us a brief description of how long you've been married. If you remember how long you've been married, and how many children you have, and just to kind of give an introduction of yourself.
All right, Pastor Boyle. For those of you who don't know me, Revival Baptist Church, and we go back a long ways with Pastor Matthews. And we're excited for this camp, and to be here is always a blessing. My wife and I have been married in June. Will be 24 years, and we're entering into some exciting stages of life that will reshape some of my answers today, maybe. But we have 7 children. Our oldest two are married, and they both just had a child, so that brings us to being grandparents twice now within the last 12 or 13 days. We've just had a little grandson and then a granddaughter 3 or 4 days ago. And then our third is now engaged as of last month, so we're entering that stage. And our youngest just became a teenager. So all of the children in our home are teenagers, and 2 married, 1 engaged, and so grandbabies are all coming along the way. Everybody in our family can drive except for 1. Poor Mark. He's the only one out of everybody in the whole family that has a permit or a driver's license. But it's a blessing, and I'll say this, when you're starting off in parenting, your biggest fear is when you get to this stage that it starts to unravel and fall apart. And so early on in your raising of a child, when it's just an infant, your goal is to get them to the point of marriage, of individual adulthood, and still love the Lord, still serve the Lord. So it's rewarding for us to see our children walk in truth, and we know that there's many stages of life. This is one that we're enjoying, and we're thankful that God has blessed us to be able to see our children walk in truth.
Thank you, Pastor Boyle. We've been friends for a while now, and I definitely look up to you and the way you run your family. I think it's great, and I think that everything that you have to say about family is going to be valuable for everyone that's here. I'm Pastor Matthews, for those who don't know, and I've been pastoring Abiding Word Baptist Church for almost 3 years. I have 5 children, been married for 20 years, but it'll be 21 years in June 12th, okay? And so I enjoy marriage. I have 1 official driver in our family, and I have a second driver who I guess he's going to get his permit his actual license very, very soon, whenever you're ready. So here we go. And so I need to discuss with him the racing stripes and the low profile tires and all that stuff. But anyway, I enjoy family camp. I love it. I love talking about family. And so this year we decided to have a Q&A session where there were questions that were submitted by some of you all here. And Pastor Boyle and I, we're going to go through those questions, and Brother Luke is going to read those questions and kind of monitor our time. But we'd like to get through all of the questions. I think there might be almost 30 questions, maybe 20 or 30 questions. But hopefully this is something that's edifying for you all, and definitely the question. There are really good questions in there, so pay attention and grab whatever nuggets of truth and encouragement you can from all of the responses. So we'll go ahead and get started. Go ahead, Brother Lou.
All right, so we got about 24 questions on here. Okay. So I'll just go down the list. A young woman asked, "How should I prepare?" Yes, actually, no, I misread the question. It says, "How should I prepare a girl or woman to be a wife?"
Well, a young girl, young woman would need to know that almost like what I preached yesterday, that she's going to be a mother. She should look forward to that, and also she'll be taking care of the home. There are some things that are in the household that she'll be need to take care of. One point that I tried to drive home last night that I think applies to that question is being able to set goals and accomplish those goals. That's a very strong ability that I find that women have, and they need to take a part of that. So I would say that would help a young woman to in her marriage, one that can set a goal and accomplish it, getting it done. So
So, to answer that question, I would say raising a godly wife starts as an infant, and it starts in what you train your daughter to like and enjoy and interest. For instance, we believe that the lady is to be a stay-at-home mom, to raise the children, to guide the house, even the barren woman to keep house, the Bible says. And so I would say this. I would say setting their priorities and their goals are different for my boys. My boys, as soon as they're able to get a job, as long as I approve of that job, I'm going to let them get a job. They start saving up money. They're going to buy a car. All my boys have vehicles. They purchased, paid for, insure, repair. But my daughter, I won't allow to work outside the home because I don't want to set a career trajectory for my daughter when my goal for her is to never marry and stay at home forever. No, my goal for her is to be a godly, edifying wife. And this advice goes to the guy side too, if I can venture there. I don't want to raise young men who are still living at home, still not working a job. They're going to wait till they find Mrs. Right before they decide to be hardworking and start saving up and getting a house. No, I'm raising young men. You're going to be the provider of a household one day. Start providing before that lady is in your life. To the lady, you're going to be the helpmeet for a husband one day. Start playing those roles early. And so you can set things like, I would let my boys do things I would never let my girls do because that's not very effeminate. That's not very ladylike. I don't want them turning that into their interest in life. So we kind of curb some things and direct. But what I'll also notice this is ladies tend to have naturally a different like anyway. We had boy, finally had a girl, and by the time we had Erica, she was our fifth, we just kind of, babies were babies, and then we realized, oh no, this is a girl baby. She's different. She likes different things. It was just instantly like she was a girl from the beginning, and it was just neat for us to see that, and we want to cultivate that. So no career, no college. I don't want my wife having a college education. I want her to train to be a stay-at-home mom.
Right. Now, you mentioned children, so the next question is, how would you make sure that you are ready for children?
Well, you have to decide in your heart. Well, if you decide you want to get married, you're deciding, okay, I'm going to have children. So you need to think ahead and think of, well, what do children need? Children need to eat. They need love. They need a place to stay. They need protection. And so from a man's point of view, I would say, make sure that you can provide housing, food, protection for children. And not just one, but many. Every young man that gets married ought to expect that, I'm going to have many, many children. That doesn't mean 100, but I mean more than one, I would say so. Would be my brief answer.
So I would say to the question, maybe the understanding is a married couple, when are they ready to start having children, or how do you prepare? I would just maybe go that direction and say, if you're married, you should be ready to have children. That's the point of marriage. God doesn't always open the wombs. There's many that marry and then never have children, but it's because God chose that, not because I'm not ready to bear children. And I will say this, you're never going to be financially, physically, mentally ready for that. You just step out by faith. And so if we were to only have as many children as we could afford, we wouldn't even have one. We had our children in the poorest time of our life, where we barely could feed the family. We barely had money for diapers. And I mean, it was penny pinching, nail biting moments. But are we regretting any of it? No, that is my investment. That is something that I'm going to bend over backwards and have as many children as God blesses me with so that I can raise them. And now here we are, reaping the rewards of having children in our youth and watching them grow up to be servants of the Lord and now grandkids. So don't wait until you think you're ready. If you're married, you're commanded to bear children.
So next question is a bit complicated. So watch the time, I guess, on it. It says, if you could write a blueprint to support in cultivating your children's love for the Lord, church, and the things of God, what would you say to support them? And then the questioner suggests maybe dividing it by infancy, childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood. You got 30 seconds. Go. No, okay.
You want to take that one first?
So I don't think there is a blueprint. I think that's a flawed perspective that it's just this non-binary, do these things and your children will turn out. It's almost like saying, how many dates do I have to take my wife on before she's not mad at me? Well, she's not an equation. You have to, there's emotions that you have to earn and keep. There are things that, how many whacks before my child quits doing X? Well, that's not how that works. And so it's a relationship. And so I think you alluded to it even last night, that not every parent or every child receives the same care from the parent. It's based on a need. Sometimes a child needs more attention. Sometimes they need less attention. Sometimes they need more liberties. Sometimes less. So I would walk away from designing a blueprint from, I have a baby, I'm going to chart out all the way to their adult years, and we're going to follow this. You're going to end up throwing it out the window, and you're just going to be a good Christian yourself, work on your marriage, keep that healthy, and you'll raise healthy children.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I know with our first child, we got a lot of advice from people. Oh, you need to do this, need to do that. Almost like every person has their own blueprint. And so that can't be right if it's, a child. There's got to be just one, right? So I think expect to love your children and expect to, bring them to church, read the Bible to them, pray with them, even from their infancy. Let the household be a home where it's centered around God, and not sitting around, playing a bunch of games, or trying to get a lot of money. But no, have the home set up as a place where godliness is cultivated, and I would agree there's not really a blueprint for it, but you grow with the end in mind being, I want godly children, so I'm going to raise them in a godly manner.
Amen. So there's two similar questions. I'm going to put them both together. Feel free to answer either or. So the first one is, what age should you begin to discipline a child, and how do you discipline them? And then the other question is, what is the best way to discipline a child without being too harsh or too lenient?
I don't think there's an age. There's not an age to really start. It's really when you identify the rebellion that's building up in them, and it needs to be dealt with. Now, usually that's in the infant age, toddler age area, and so at that age, you're not pulling off your belt, getting a stick, and but maybe just a tap on the hand, something that they can acknowledge as, oh wait, I shouldn't have done that. Of course, they're not going to say that to you, but at that young age, they'll realize, whoa, that thing that I just did, it yields a pain that comes right after it, a shocker to the small child. But as the child grows, then you'll transition to something that the sting is more painful, I guess, and because a small child, sometimes even like a snap on their hand is enough. But that's not enough for an 8-year-old. Okay, an 8-year-old that's rebelling against what the parents say, they'll need the belt probably. Okay, but there's no, just like the blueprint for raising children, there's no real blueprint, except for you got to use the rod because of pain. You want to make sure that there's pain for the child to learn from it. So.
Well, I'm a grandpa now, so I don't believe in discipline anymore. Those precious little babies are too innocent. No, I'm just teasing. I would say we learned the hard way with our son Joshua. We let him get too far into even maybe toddler years before we really started making hard lines where no means no. Most parents, I observe, they might keep their child from crying and throwing a fit, but they don't ever tell them no. Meaning, like, they want that and you tell them no, they won't do that and let the kid cry. They'll actually just replace the object with something different, and the kid is not told no, he's just playing with a different toy. And we learned after Joshua, with the others that followed, the younger you can fight those battles, the better it's going to be, because it is simply a slap on the hand, a slap on the leg. When they get older, it's it gets harder. They will throw themselves down and they will scream bloody murder, and it's harder to win those battles, but we will win them. But we started younger and younger, and it's not in the infant tiny baby days, but it's when they start that form of rebellion. You'll see it. They'll arc that back when they'll turn away when you tell them. You're like, whoa, you don't tell mom and dad no, and that's where we draw that line. And then being too harsh. Did you have another question?
Well, another question is just exactly that. How do you handle it when your child doesn't respect you or challenges your authority?
So you win those battles. To that question. So not everything's a battle. Your kids aren't going to be perfect. Every time they spill something or they make noise or they break a rule, those are not all discipline moments, but you do draw lines. And when you draw a line and they push that boundary, you have to win. And unfortunately, they don't do that at home. Most time they do it in a church setting when you're with family. You're bragging about how good your kid is, and then they do something. You're like, don't do that. And then they do it like, oh, yeah? And you're like, well, that's a battle line. And excuse me, folks, I got to go take care of my family. Don't be embarrassed to have to excuse yourself to go discipline multiple times. Sometimes it'll be like you can't even hold a conversation that day because you're busy just redrawing that battle line. You'll do that, but you'll only do that for a little bit. Now, on the too harsh, that was the second question on the first set. You can be too harsh if you're not careful. And sometimes the militant side of, especially us men, we're just like, don't you break the rules, and if you do, here. The goal is cultivating obedience, cultivating a love and a relationship. So if it's just black and white, this infraction requires this punishment, you are actually undermining the point of discipline. The point of discipline is not to inflict pain and make them feel bad about what they did, but to teach them not to do that again and to obey. And so what we did, I learned from my dad, is it was 3 whacks no matter how mad I was. Because sometimes you can get really upset. They do something and you're just 3 whacks. That way I'm not in a rage just punishing my child and then I'm thinking, what did I do? No, it's calculated, it's precise, it's in love. If I'm mad, I will wait. I will send them to their room. And when I'm cooled off, then I'll go in the room and deal with it. You want to avoid those in-the-moment disciplines of wrath, because that is over the top.
Right. So we'll get back to that topic, but this one changes a little bit. How do you incorporate unbelieving family members into their lives without allowing them to influence your children?
So whenever being with unsaved family members, I think it's fine to have dinner together, talking, but reminding the children beforehand, hey, this particular family member is, they have an issue with the way that we live, the way that we the way that we go to church and all that. Know that whatever they say, it's probably not going to be a nice thing or a godly thing that they say. So prepare the children for that, and then even after, if someone says something that's off color, during the dinner or during the meeting, to say that right there is inappropriate. And adults will probably just try to laugh it off. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Ha ha ha. But that's a great time to tell the children. So that was wrong. Okay, what they said, and make sure the children understand that that yes, that's Uncle so and so, or yes, that's cousin so and so, but they don't believe on Jesus Christ. They've rejected him or whatever. Now, when there's a family meetup that it's full of alcohol and just blatant rebellion against God, and it's not just a simple dinner, well, that we just won't go. We're not going to participate in that. But there are going to be times where you just have to say, we're not going, and this is the reason we're not going. This particular family member, they're in fornication. They think it's fine. We are not participating in that, or whatever that sin is. But if it's just a simple dinner, I would be okay at the dinner, but then reminding the children, okay, these are the wrong things that they said during dinner. And so
I would encourage family that have unsaved or not sharing the same value family members, include them. What I find oftentimes is that we create an island that, Uncle so-and-so is not saved, so we don't hang out with Uncle so-and-so or Grandma and Grandpa. And I see a lot of people shun away family members for just the simple reason that we don't agree on things. Well, you shouldn't require they agree with you, and they shouldn't require that you agree with them. That's your family, and so don't shut them out. I don't think that that's right to do. When it is right is when they won't respect the lines that you're drawing. And I'll give you an example. I had a family in our church one time in Ohio that the grandma would show the kids pictures of their mom in pants. See, your mom used to wear pants. Okay, that's undermining, and we're going to now pull back from that. You're removing yourself by undermining my values. But to make them live to my values, I wouldn't do. When we had kids, we called them fun visits and not fun visits. Remember those? I would be in the car, we'd be driving. All right, now this is not a fun visit. I don't want you playing in the rooms with the kids, with your cousins. You're going to be sitting next to mom and dad. I want you to be polite. And we explain they don't share our values. We're here because it's family. This isn't a fun visit. This is duty and obligation, but we're still going to be respectful. The ones that were fun visits were ones that, hey, yeah, go play with the kids. I know that family. I don't mind if you run outside and play in the field. You're okay with that. But if it was one of those family duties, you sat on the couch beside us, you looked at Grandma, you said, hi, Grandma, you gave her a hug, you sat there and you listened to the adults talk. We didn't want you in the room watching TV with your cousins, whatever they're allowing them to do. So set those regulations, but don't withhold the visits, because that is still your family.
All right, so we're over halfway through the time here, and we got a lot more questions. But the next one is, do you do family Bible study, and how do you do it?
So we've transitioned from family Bible study to family time. I noticed that we needed to have more respect for each other and listening to each other and participating together. And so we do that more now. But when we were doing family Bible study, we would just take a verse. I would read one verse, usually out of Proverbs, and we would just discuss the verse. Proverbs is really good for that because each verse is just packed with truth, and you can teach the truths that are in that particular proverb with the family. And many times the children, they learn just from listening to the verse. Say, oh, wow, okay, so that verse right there is talking about this, and that's good for the family to be listening to those verses. So that's a good Bible study for family, I think.
So I think every family is different. I don't think you should require that a good family would have that Bible time. I think what we did when our kids were younger, we had Bible time until they were old enough to read, and then we encouraged them one-on-one time. We would still have family meetings every once in a while where we would address issues in the home, but the morning or daily routine of everybody sits around and we all share turned into, we expect you to do your own Bible time and walk with the Lord. But then again, remember, we homeschooled. So in every homeschool session, there's Bible courses. There's Bible being taught. It's not like if you don't do it first thing in the morning, it's never being brought up and we send them off to school. They're actually all day at home, and those conversations happen when thou art in the way, when thou walkest by the way. Deuteronomy is like, hey, when you're walking through the door, talk about the Bible, not requiring that it be a 30-minute devotion time. And so people may have that, nothing wrong with it. It did not. We did when our kids were younger. They would sit them down, have the little Bible in their lap. They couldn't read. We'd share Bible truths with them. But as they got older, I don't want the Bible time to be a punishment. You sit down for 30 minutes and read that Bible. No, I want you to want to, and you should see me doing that, and you should desire that for yourself.
Okay. So what shared activities have you found to be most beneficial to strengthen your bond with your spouse?
So I really like going on walks. We recently we've been walking a lot together, and we talk about just about everything. We talk about the children. We talk about plans that we have, purchases, things that we want to get rid of. And that really enriches our relationship, in my opinion, because I'm more aware of things she just has been thinking about. When busy day to day, she's doing homeschooling, I'm at work. We don't really get to talk about that, but when we set a time that, hey, let's go for a walk, well, during the walk, we actually can share. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what you've been thinking about. Oh, okay, that's what that face meant. Oh, okay, this is what this is, and we get a better understanding of each other. So.
So whenever she's cleaning and doing dishes is our no. No, I would say, it depends on the stage of life that you're in. And I would say when you're in the childbearing stage, whether it's the baby or raising kids, you're doing that together. And I think what I see a lot of husbands do is, I don't change diapers. I don't feed the baby. That's a woman's job. Actually, that's going to bring your marriage closer together as you are together helping. So you get off work, you come home, you want bonding time with your wife, offer to take the baby and let her take a walk, let her take a nap, let her go shopping. And what you're going to find is it is in strengthening her so she's not frazzled and at her wit's end and almost punished for having children. I would say the bonding time is in the rearing of the children. And now our bonding time is we've got grandkids now. And so every morning, we're over there as soon as we can to get to the grandkids, and we'll watch them grow up. And so there's common interest is where your bond is going to be. Not I go fishing, she goes shopping. The common interest is raising a family, is raising now grandchildren. And so find common interest and bear that, whether that's a walk, whether that's raising children, but find that and then use that to strengthen both your family and, of course, your marriage.
All right. So another person asked, how should couples handle disagreements or arguments in a healthy way? And another asker wants to know examples of how you've done that. I don't know if you want to answer that.
You want to take that?
Sure. So if you have the right person in your life, you'll never disagree. No. Okay, so let me start with an unhealthy way, okay? You're always going to have problems with any group of people in the same room long enough. And that's what family units need to learn, what Pastor Matthew said last night. There are challenges in every category of the family unit. You have that many people living in the same room that long, you're going to bump each other. You're going to irritate each other. The way not to handle disagreements is to include other people in your disagreements, okay? Especially in-laws on either side. What happens is, especially early on in the marriage, the son or the husband and wife, they begin to have a little disagreement, whatever it might be. And daughter goes and asks her parents, and son goes and asks his parents, and now the parents are like, I can't believe my wife's husband is treating her like that, or said this, or I can't believe my son's wife. And next thing you know, family's not very forgiving. But then the husband and wife work it out, but the in-laws never do. And so I would say learn to deal internally with your disagreements that you have. If you need to bring someone in, bring in a neutral person like a pastor or a friend that can keep things to themselves, because the goal is to work it out, not to put a permanent wedge between the husband and wife. And family will put that permanent wedge. And so my advice to my children, because I'm their pastor, is if you need counsel, seek a different pastor so that I'm not bringing any biased advice into that. I'm willing if they want me, but I would prefer they call a neutral person who can forgive them, and I don't have to know any of it, because I don't want to look at my in-laws, my daughter-in-laws or son-in-law in the light of whatever trouble they went through. So I would say you're going to have issues. Learn to work them out together. Bring in a pastor if needed, but don't include your family in those tiffs, because they will not forgive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would start with this, saying that you want to start your marriage off with a rule that says we are on the same team. So it's you two versus everybody else, including in-laws, old friends, people from church. It's you two versus everyone else. So you're always going to have some difficulties. There's always going to be something that comes up that you might disagree on, or you have two different points of view. But what's the number one rule again? We're on the same team. So the priority ought to be, well, we disagree, but let's find some common ground here. Let's find I don't know, you could say a compromise, but let's find a place where we can both understand what each other's point of view is, to where we don't have to fight about it, or want to sleep in separate rooms, because that often happens too, where people say, well, we disagree, so we have two separate rooms, but we're not divorced. It's like, well, the whole point is for you to be married, to be together wherever you are. And so if you start off with we're on the same team, you know, it doesn't matter who comes in. They're on the other team. Anybody who comes in, they're on the other team, and that's why it's also good. I think of misery loves company. When people get really upset, they want to get people on their side. Well, there shouldn't be uneven sides when it comes to husband and wife. There should be the husband and wife together, and everybody else that's on the outside, come in. That's why having a neutral party like a pastor is good, because he could just sit back and say, wait, what's the issue here? What are you disagreeing on? You should work it out to bring them closer together. That's the point, to stay together. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
So there's another question now. How do you keep romance alive in marriage?
Priority wife. Like my wife is priority, and to be honest, I mean, when it comes to romance, I would have to look to her. What she would like, what would you like to eat? Which is a hard question, because we pretty much just need to go wherever I say. And what would you like to have for your birthday or for your anniversary? And if I can listen, okay. I think it's hard for men to listen sometimes. I try to. If you can listen, I think romance would be better, because you actually hear what she's saying and you actually listen to what she's saying. She does not like it when you put your shoes in this location. So that would be a good thing for you as a husband to remember. Wait a minute, she doesn't like it when my shoes are there. Let me put them somewhere else. Now that might not be romance, but I don't know. I don't know much about romance, but I think that's pretty romantic. Like, I'm not putting my shoes there. And, it might come up in a later conversation, too. Like, hey, did you know that I didn't put my shoes, where you don't like them? I mean, you might get some points for that, but...
Save him, Pastor Boyle.
So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that'll get the girls right there. Like, you notice where my shoes are? Mm-hmm. But I would agree. I have a Bible verse that came to mind. It says, "So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it." That word cherisheth would be a romance. Nourishing would be you're paying the bills, the lights are on, the food is in the fridge, her needs are taken care of. But the cherishing is above the nourishing. It is actually finding out what she likes, what she doesn't like, whether that's the shoes in a place or a restaurant she wants to go to, or a night out with you, or a walk around the block. I'm tired. Yeah, but I'm going to cherish my wife, and I'm going to do things that are not part of the essentials, but I'm going to cherish. And so a lot of, for men, there's a command there to do that because it doesn't come natural. For us men, we don't really need that cherishing aspect of things. Like, if my good friends, I talk to them. How many times do we talk to each other? We're good friends. We are like faith churches. We love Abiding Word Baptist Church, but we don't need the reminder that we're still here, right? It's like, all right, see you next year. Oh, hey, by the way, you coming to preach? Oh, yeah, all right. And we would say good friendship. Ladies, that's not how it works, right? I haven't heard from them. Well, I haven't changed my mind. I'm still your husband. I still love you. Like, yeah, but you haven't said it lately. Do I need to? Like we don't understand that, but yes. The lady side of it is. And so find things that your wife likes and do those and just show her that, hey, you're still important to me. So I would say that is an important part of marriage.
So this question is, what character qualities did you look for when you found your wife, and what character qualities would you advise someone to look for or stay away from in a spouse?
For my wife, I just wanted a nice woman. I mean, a woman that would be there, that would, love me, that would, care for me. Not allowed, a woman that's always, cussing me out. I remember younger years where the teenagers just crazy, and my parents would tell me, watch out for those hood rats, stay away from them. So I had my parents telling me about bad, girls, bad women, and I decided, I don't want that, so I would want one that's nice, so, a woman who's loving, cares about life, cares about herself, cares about her family and her, her parents. That's what I wanted. But for a young man, I would say, find a woman that you can see that we're gonna live together until we die. Until I die, where we're gonna be together. And I know that might be hard to kind of picture in your mind, but there are just some things that if they are really annoying and they happen all the time, that's probably not the woman that you would want to be with. All right, because you're going to be with her until you die. And so I would say the same thing for young ladies as well, but mostly talking from the point of view of a man. Yeah, if they annoy you, you're talking to them, you thought you were interested prior, and everything they say, everything they do is annoying. Well, it's probably not going to be very healthy for you to just go ahead and get married because somebody says that you should. You have to be with this person for the rest of your life. So you want it to be pleasant, and again, you will run into issues. Okay, but that's just because we're different. Everybody's different. So someone that can be on your team, that could be a teammate and work with you. I think that is what you're looking for.
So I would say it depends on what stage in life you're looking. Like I would say to someone who's young, 18, 19, 20, I would say, how does that lady treat her parents? Because that is going to be a true indication of your marriage after you've been married, as long as she's been in that household. And if she can't stand dad and she can't stand mom, and you're going to rescue her from this horrible family life, well, one day you're going to be the horrible person she needs rescued from. And so I'm not saying home life is perfect, but you'll learn a lot from how a lady is to her parents. And that was what attracted me to my wife. She was graduated college already, but still lived at home, still under her parents, wasn't this rebellious spirit. And I looked over and I said, that's what I'm looking for in my wife, someone who will treat me the way she's treating her parents. And so there's a lot to learn. If and this is kind of some advice I gave my dating boys, if the person you're talking to is begging you to rescue them from mean old mom and dad who don't understand me, you don't want them. Run, because you're just their way out of that situation, and one day another guy is going to be her way out of your situation. So look for someone who is in the authority that's in their life, that is in submission to that authority. Then you can almost expect, as long as you're leading the way God wants, that they will submit to that authority. Another thing is, don't be disingenuous to them and go find someone who is not anything you're looking for as far as dress, beliefs, doctrines, anything. And you're going to make them into the wife that you think she should be, because that's not going to happen. Now, all of a sudden, you're not cherishing her. You're making her to conform. So find someone who is going to share those values and then walk together. And it may not always start off that way. Let me give you an example. With my wife, she was one of two children. Her parents both worked outside the home in ministry. She was a Christian school teacher. I'm against Christian schools, even back then. I was against women working outside the home, even back then. So she didn't fit the immediate profile. I saw a subjection to her authority, and that drew me to that. But then those questions came up. Hey, the future of our home is going to be homeschooling. No, and once we have found, hey, actually she wanted that, but her authority didn't offer that. And so we found we were walking together. Now we can go ahead and continue. But it wasn't, well, once I'm married, I'm going to just say, well, she's going to do what I want. Well, okay, now I'm really not cherishing her. I'm trying to make her into something she's not. So those are some things to look for. But most importantly, I would say, how is she responding to the authority that's already in her life?
Great. So we have a number of questions left, and we've passed the allotted time. So how many questions do you want to keep going for?
Yeah, we could take two more.
Two more? Okay. And some of these, you could just ask the pastors. They'll give you their thing. So next one, this is a good one. When you reflect on your parenting over the years, what would you have liked to do more or less of?
I think so. I'll address both more and less. More of maybe more of letting them know what I do, what my job is, because they're trying to, now, I've got two that are looking for jobs or are interested in working, and it's kind of like, well, what should they be doing? And I think they don't really understand what I do, but I would love it if they did what I do. I mean, me being a software person, software engineer, I think that would be good to just give that exposure unto them for them to learn that. I know when children are young, you want to expose them to a lot of stuff. So when they were younger, expose them definitely to music. I'm a musician also, and so now when it comes to bringing home the bacon and working, I'd like them to know more about what I do for a living. As far as do less of, thinking of it now, I mean, my oldest will be 18 in a few months. I think I would want to have done less. I just allowing him to decide what he was going to do. I mean, being the first child, you can't rewind the time and go back. But as a first child, a lot of it was just like, well, I'm not really sure. Is this the right thing? To allow him to lead, more. And so I think I would have rather let him decide less of how he's going to do things and be more of a dad. It wasn't until later on where I decided, no, I'm going to be the leader. I'm in charge. And so yeah, that's what I would say.
So that's a hard question. I'd have to, I kind of sitting there listening while you were talking. And I think everybody's going to have regrets. Always, we should have done more for the Lord. We should have said, I love you more. I think life's just full of regrets. For me, sitting here thinking about that question, I would say if I could do more of, it would be showing my kids the miracles that actually happened in their life. Because as men, and I even pastor this way to an extent, I don't share when we're in a financial mess. I don't share when we're on the verge of one bad offering and the whole church is going out. And ministries are like that. I got big shoulders. I'm on my knees praying, and then the check comes in the mail, and you're like, but if I could, I would go back and show every time that happened to the kids and say, like, do you realize what God just did? And I always didn't do it because I felt as if the stress of raising a family was mine, not theirs. But looking back, God hasn't failed, and it probably would be neat to, Captain Hindsight, right? It's different when you tell your kids, if this doesn't happen by this time tomorrow, here's what's going to be the detriment. Now let's pray. And then watch them be part of that miracle. There are times when we did. I can think of, as a family, praying for us to land at a church. We were homeless, jobless, ministryless. We prayed, remember, and we got the church, and it was an empty trailer with no furniture, and we ran around like we were Pentecostals, praising the Lord because we now have a house. I'm like, look what God just did for you guys. And there were several occasions, but in reality, our marriage is comprised of many, many miracles that even my wife would be unaware of, because I'm just going to bear that. God's going to provide. He provides, and they never even know we were on the verge of any kind of disaster. But I would say more of that. More including them in the miracles before they happen, letting them see God pull through. That would be if I could go back and do more of.
All right, last question then. What are some of the challenges you face in raising teenagers or the young adults living at home, and how do you handle them?
Well, a challenge, I guess, started years ago is they have strong opinions, and sometimes I'm wrong in my opinion, and that's kind of it's a hard thing to deal with, because it's like you're just a teenager, but then when they say, "Well, Dad, actually, it's it's this, or the Bible says this," it's like, yeah, you're right. That's a challenge, because whenever they have an opinion that is, like a life-changing opinion, I think that I should have the final say, and then what they're saying, it actually makes a lot of sense. I don't want to, give up that win, but it's like, oh, actually, they're right about that. How I've dealt with it, I've struggled with just saying, you know what, son, you're right. And it's just hard. It's just hard to do. It may not be for all of you dads, but for me, saying that you're right, I was wrong, to the point where sometimes it's not immediate. I'll take my partial win, in the beginning, but then minutes later, maybe even an hour later, hey son, yeah, that was actually a good thing. That was a good thing what you said. But I never tell them, don't tell anybody or anything like that. It's more of, even though I would want to, but it's more of, okay, well, you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn, and as a dad, you want to be right at least most of the time. But there are gonna be times where these teenagers, they read, they talk, they go to church, they know. They know things too, and they're gonna be right sometimes. So a few times, but they'll be right sometimes. And that would be the thing that teenagers bring. They bring good advice sometimes because they're well read. They understand life and everything. They still have things to learn, obviously, but they every now and then they'll have something like, wait, what about this, Dad? Oh, okay, yeah. So that's a challenge with teenagers for me.
I've never had that moment. I'm always right. My kids and I, we have our unique relationship because they'll say something and I'll shoot it down, and then I'll 5 minutes later come up with it in a different way, but it's the same idea. And they're like, Dad, I just said that. And the joke is, yeah, but it sounds better when I say it. And so that's kind of my way of saying, yeah, I know you're right. It takes me a while to get there. But some of the challenges of teenagers, what I would say is remembering back to the original question of raising a young lady to be a wife. You're raising your children not to be permanent children, but to be adults, whether that's a male leading a home or a lady following some man that will be in her life one day. So you do have to incrementally give them responsibilities and let them make those decisions. I know parents who their teenagers can't drink a soda without asking. Like at some point, their dietary part of life is going to be on them. They can't do anything without asking. So part of the challenge is giving them the responsibility without giving them too much responsibility. And then the other side is, as you give them that responsibility, remember, they're now going to make decisions arbitrary to whatever arena you have allowed them to that you might not have made. You might not have wanted them to have that second soda, but you just told them, hey, you need to start thinking about your own health. That's your own decisions to make. And then you saw them drink 3 sodas. Well, now I gave them that. I don't like what they did, but that's their decision. Now, you can always rein it in. Like, as a parent, if I gave liberty and I saw them misusing it, that'd be a conversation. Hey, buddy, here's what we're going to have to do. We're going to rethink things. But in our home, we never had many head-butting moments, especially with our young men. But there were times I wanted to, but I didn't because I realized these are young men making decisions, and we all of a sudden, it's if I can use the word, the evolution of one head-hold household developing these other heads that are about to be sent out. And they don't go from being dad may I, to the leader without a transition of some authority. They get a driver's license. Okay, I want you home at this time. I want you, Dad, can I run to the gas station? Do whatever you want. Until I find you misusing that liberty, then we're going to rein it in. So those are challenges. It's hard for parents to let their child start to have liberties and freedoms because you want that. No, I got to know every minute, no. I'm probably the most laid-back parent you'll ever know, and I know it probably doesn't seem that way, but I never know where my kids are because I trust them. I don't know. I've got Caleb, Kyle. I don't even know where they are right now. They're working a job somewhere. When will they come home? I don't know. When did they leave for work? I don't know. How many days are they going to work this week? I don't know. They have a job. That's their job. Until I need to know, and then they have to lay that out. So, but they've earned that, and that's one of the struggles is watching them not need you anymore and allowing that to happen. So to the parents out there, the struggles of teenagers, is allowing them to become an adult while you're still in their life and letting them make those decisions. Now, if it's sinful or wrong, that's a no. But those arbitrary life choices, you're going to have to start letting them make. And you can still direct, but I don't advise the helicopter parenting in the teenage years.
All right. Well, thank you, Pastor Boyle, for your time.